I'm delighted to be here today, as I said, MBA Programme Director for Newcastle Business School. Thank you very much for joining us today, whether you've already got an offer from us already, or whether you're just still considering it and weighing up some of your options and exploring the next step in your leadership journey. You're in exactly the right place. So today is designed to give you a deeper understanding of what the MBA offers. Not just as a degree, but as a transformative experience and as a pivotal step to whatever you want to achieve next in your career and your life. So we'll be exploring some of the key themes that define our programme, covering the importance of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and continuous growth in growing into your full leadership potential. So we're joined today by some illustrious panel members. They're all distinguished members of our MBA advisory panel. And so we'll be hearing some practical insights from them, from their real life experience. And they have a real wealth of real life experience across the world in a variety of different industries at senior level. So they'll be sharing their perspectives on leading diverse and cross-cultural teams, managing workplace dynamics, and building strong, effective professional working relationships. So we've got a threefold objective today. First of all, to introduce you to the spirit and focus of the Newcastle MBA. Second, to give you actionable leadership insights that you can take away and use. And third and finally, to help you decide whether this Newcastle University MBA is the right next step for you. You have plenty of chance to ask questions later in the session. If you could just introduce yourself in the chat, say where you are dialing in from today, and what you'd really like to find out, what you'd like to find out about the program today, and what questions you've got about the program. If you could turn off your microphones, that would be great. Save us from distracting noises. Thank you very much. But we're excited to get started. So I'd just like to start by asking our panel to briefly introduce themselves. If I could turn to Sameena first, please.
Hi there, Lucy. I'm assuming everybody can hear me well. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. I'm Sameena Bashey. I'm an executive coach and a leadership consultant. My background is in global HR leadership. I spent a big chunk of my 30-year career with General Electric, GE, global business, working in a variety of different sectors like oil and gas, renewable energy, GE Capital, as well as GE Healthcare. I've now, for the last 5 years, I have had my own business where I work with executive leaders around the globe, helping them excel to more senior levels by transforming, changing themselves, their teams, their careers. So that's the work I do a lot now. I did my MBA at Newcastle University more than 25 years ago and got a lot of benefit. I can talk about that later. And at this moment in time, what I do also is sit on the business school board for Newcastle University, as well as the advisory board for the MBA. Great to be here.
Sameena. Thank you. Anna Carolina?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ana Carolina. Everybody calls me Carol here in Brazil. I'm a Brazilian. I'm tax law specialist. And today I work with as a judge, tax judge for the IRS in Brazil. But I also work as a civil society, really, enterprise with deal with sustainable development and taxation in Brazil. So I was at the MBA from 2018 to 2019. So it's the experience of the MBA is still very vivid for me, and was very transformative. I changed my career a lot after the MBA. So I hope we have time to talk about it later.
Thanks, Carol. David?
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Hi, everyone. I'm David. I've spent the last 35 years in the clothing, sportswear, sporting goods environment. I've run brands, I've developed brands, launched brands, transformed brands, sold brands over that time. I've worked with Nike, I've worked with Marks and Spencer's here in the UK, and launched some celebrity endorsed brands to boot. So my time now is spent much more on the consulting side. Funny enough, working with a number of those brands that I used to work for back in the day, but also helping and supporting startups or SMEs and helping them along their journeys as well. So welcome everyone. Nice to see you here.
Thank you, David. Vivek?
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, everyone. So this is Vivek Unnikrishnan. So my background is almost 20 years in industry and in management consulting. Originally from India. I'm an engineer by background. I spent the first 15 years in industry, mostly in the energy, oil and gas industry, where I was delivering big capital projects for some of the big energy players such as BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, managing global teams and delivering those big projects. For the last sort of 5 years, I kind of made a shift into management consulting, and I've been working in the energy transition space, mostly around carbon capture, around hydrogen, around Power-to-X and renewable energy, and sort of delivering projects for clients globally. That's kind of what I've been doing over the last sort of few years. Like some of the panel members here, I've done my MBA as well from Newcastle University Business School. That was in 2008-9. I actually got placed through the business school as well into a job that I picked up straight after the MBA, which I can touch upon during the course of the call. But yeah, it's great to be here and looking forward to the discussion. And in my capacity as an advisory, I kind of work with the team that you have on the call today. And I've also been involved in a lot of activities as an alumni as well, supporting the business school. Yeah, wonderful to be on the call and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. And finally, Camille.
Hello, everyone. I'm Camille Carter. I work in a global advertising and marketing firm. And for the past 10 years, I've been doing that in a senior capacity, working with clients all over the world, mainly across the fashion, finance and healthcare sectors. So I work with brands like Next, Standard Chartered Bank, Victoria's Secret, Gap, to name a few. I am very much focused on developing sort of high-performing and connected teams that can operate across an increasingly global marketplace, and really sort of developing personalities that sit within those teams as well. I am also, I'm on maternity leave at the moment. I'm just raising my second baby, so I'm raising teams and raising babies at the same time, which is going well so far. And I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this panel today, and hopefully getting to know more of you if you do join this MBA program, which has been nothing short of transformative for I know the previous cohort, and you know it's a brilliant experience. I've really enjoyed kind of learning more about the business school and the people that are part of it as well. So delighted to be here today. Looking forward to talking to you all through the chat, and with any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. So thank you to all our panel members this afternoon. Really appreciate the time that you've given to this session today. I'd like to take a couple of minutes now just to give a general overview of the MBA programme, and then we'll move into our panel discussion. This is a brief overview of the Newcastle MBA programme and our unique use of situated practical theory that combines academic study with real-world application. So it's a very experiential, immersive, practice-based programme. The program's structured, you can see in phase 1, around a solid foundation of core modules, covering essential areas like finance, marketing, HR, and strategy. During that time, you'll develop really strong analytical and decision-making capabilities, integrating a global perspective, a responsible leadership approach, and aspects of digital and data across the program. Beyond the core, you can see on the left-hand side there, we've got a range of elective modules which allow you to tailor your MBA, whether you're drawn to a deeper dive into finance and investment, digital marketing, or managing innovation, for example. What we think truly sets our MBA programme apart is our immersive and experiential learning opportunities. So you'd be tackling live business challenges and initiatives like Business in Action. You can see that on the right-hand side. The Boardroom Challenge, that's in the Business Analysis for Decision-Making module. and hands-on corporate projects, allowing you to translate theory into real-world impact. So it's not case studies, it's not simulations, it's live projects with real clients. Leadership and growth is central to your journey, supported by structured workshops, personality assessments, mentoring by maybe some of the people that you can see on the call today, and developing a personal development plan. You'll also benefit from a rich suite of global learning opportunities, from international study experiences and virtual business competitions to keynote sessions. And finally, you'll have access to the wider Newcastle community, including academic advising, career development services, wellbeing support, and vibrant extracurricular activities such as consulting and entrepreneurship societies, cultural forums, and global alumni networks. So this MBA, the Newcastle University MBA, equips you with the academic knowledge, practical skills, global perspective, and personal insight you need to leave with impact. Of course, while the structure and content of the MBA are crucial, what really brings it to life are the people. So that's you, the cohort that you'll be with, the faculty, the alumni, some of whom are on the call again today, and the business leaders who support the program. So this brings us to the key part of today's session. So I'll just stop sharing my slide here so that you can see who's talking to you. I'm joined by an exceptional group of professionals who've you've just heard introduce themselves from our MBA advisory board, who each bring a deep insight into the leadership, organizational dynamics, and the challenges of today's global workplace. So they'll be sharing their own experiences and perspectives on some of the themes we've touched on. So self-awareness, emotional intelligence, leading diverse teams, and navigating complex professional networks. So we'll kick off then with the first part of the panel discussion, looking at self-awareness and emotional intelligence and growth. So I'm just wondering if somebody would like to kick off with a bit of a reflection on how important these qualities are and what contributing factor they have been in your success to date. Because we talk a lot about, you know, the technical skills, but increasingly it's the soft skills that are getting the attention. So Sameena, I saw your hand there.
I don't mind kicking off. Hi, everyone. Look, I mean, emotional intelligence really, for me, is fundamental in leadership. You know, by that, I'm talking about, you know, you're self-aware, being self-aware, knowing some of your triggers, your behaviors, the impact that has on the others around you. And I guess for me, when I reflect back on, especially on my HR career through, you know, those 30 years working in corporate environments, I was fortunate that in a company like GE, it was very regular to have 360 feedback on your leadership. That's not just from your boss, but also from your team members, from your peers, other key stakeholders throughout, you know, your career. And that I found really, really helped my self-awareness. We all think as leaders, we know what we're good at, what we're not good at, but it's amazing the insights I always used to get from that. And then to spend a lot of time not only reflecting on that, but looking at how can you improve that leadership, you know. And the fact is that there's so many things that you can work on, which I did spend a lot of my career working on how I influenced others to bring them along the journey, often really driving a lot of transformative, you know, change globally across businesses, how to do that more effectively, and for people to actually highlight, you know, what they thought you weren't particularly good at. It's important to be humble and recognize that there is constant improvement that has to be made. So I would say, you know, that was really important throughout my career. And I would encourage all the others listening, whether you do the MBA or not do the MBA, it is fundamental in improving your own emotional intelligence is to get that level of feedback, whether it's through surveys, through coaches, through whatever mechanism that you use in improving the way you lead others.
I would wholeheartedly agree with Sameena on all of that. I think that emotional intelligence particularly is something that we often undervalue as leaders, but we really, really shouldn't, because beyond all of that kind of corporate or professional facade that we put out there in the world, and our teams that we hire and we have around us, we're all actually just human beings. And realistically, when you go to work, no matter how much you try to keep your personal lives at home, often they will bleed through into what you're doing day to day. And as a leader, I think that it's incredibly important to recognize that, and recognize that people might not be always bringing the same version of themselves to work every day. One sort of example that I would give, I quite often have to deal with, I deal with a lot of quite big teams with lots of mid-level and junior players within those teams, and you can often find that you get people that have performed very well, or they're really good at their jobs, but then one day something goes disastrously wrong. They might make a really big mistake at work. It might have been a big loss leader from a financial perspective, or it might have just really upset another team member. And what's really important in those situations is not to jump on that person and to discredit all of the previous good work that they might have done. Instead, from an emotional perspective, consider what might have been going on with that individual within kind of their own lives, and often having a conversation with these people before you I guess sort of put them on a pip, or before you start to think about sort of hiring somebody else in to do that job. Really think about what that person's strengths are and why they might have struggled with that particular task. So I think leading with emotional intelligence is the best way to breed emotional intelligence within teams at the same time, and to really just remember that key fact that people are just human beings. And quite often, depending on your industry, it's not life or death. Most of the time in most industries, a mistake isn't life or death, and actually just sort of managing those people and managing the expectations of your team around that is what will really help you become the best leader that you can be.
That's so true. I think that it's so important to seek feedback all the time, not wait for opportunities, the structured opportunities, but to look for feedback all the time. And your point, Camille, about seeing, recognizing the human side of, recognizing the other lives that people have, just as we all have other lives that we don't necessarily broadcast at work. So do everybody else. David?
Yeah, I think it's there's often a word that's used is conflict, which I always think is quite an extreme word. But conflict at work is where tensions arise, really, amongst teams, and it can be amongst your peer group, or it could be amongst the management versus their subordinates or other team players. My experience is that when these tensions arise, 95% of the time, it's because exactly what Camille said, is that there's something going on in that person's life, but it's so easy to translate that, whatever the event is, in the likelihood that you may even not get to know what the event is, it translates through to their behavior and ultimately to the team. And a lot of people just sit there and they'll go, I've said something. What have I said? I've said something. I've upset them. I've done something. It must be me. Actually, no, they don't like me. And so thing escalates and it escalates. And a lot of it escalates in people's minds. And a perception builds and the tensions continue to rise. My wholehearted recommendation to all of this is just grab it. And you don't necessarily have to ask what the problem is outside, but go, are we good? Can I help? Is there anything I can help you with? Or could you help me in understanding something else? Reach out to people, because those tensions are horrible. And I've seen them exist for sometimes weeks, months, sometimes years, and they never get resolved. And the ultimate to teamwork and the ultimate to being successful in business is if you have a galvanized team, there's nothing more powerful within your organization. Be stronger than the product that you have, it'd be stronger than the marketing that you have. How people work together is the thing that really will take and transform your business forward. So never ignore these tensions, or never ignore these conflicts that are around there. Just be brave. Just be brave in just confronting, and not aggressively, but in a nice way, in a way that you would expect someone else to approach you. And you'd be amazed at the response that you get from people. by doing that. And that happens at all different levels, from junior to senior and what have you. So just don't let these tensions, conflicts sit there. Address them would be my strong recommendation to all of this.
Yeah, don't let them fester. That's a good advice.
And Lucy, and if I can add something, I think the learning skills, how can you truly listen to what people have to say? It's I thought, a very important tool that I learned at the MBA, and because if you actually are open to listen to the critics and to open to listen to what people are living and what they want for the work, it's really what brings engagement to the team and allows you to have empathy for you, the people who are working with you, and to build more resilient work environments, you really need that kind of engagement. So I think the learning skill and to actually listen to what people have to say, it's really important.
Thank you. That's part of our induction. Now we have a dedicated session called The Thinking Environment, which is exclusively about like properly being present and really listening, because that's so valuable, isn't it? If you're just waiting to speak the whole time, you can miss all of these really subtle cues that David was talking about if something's a bit off and you haven't noticed. Vivek.
No, just adding a couple of points. I think the panel members have covered a lot of really good, important points. Just a couple of things from my experience to kind of, when we talk about emotional intelligence, is I think being sensitive to people's cultures, I think, is another important factor there as well. Because, I mean, speaking from my own experience, I mean, delivering big capital projects, I've managed teams that I haven't even met in person. I mean, they're in a different part of the world doing different things. And I think being culturally sort of aware of some of the sensitivities associated with work and life and the balance is equally important as well. But secondly, I think we've talked about it. It's important to be a good listener, but I think it's also important to communicate well and sort of have that sort of attitude, because you're never going to have an issue if you over communicate, but a lack of communication will always cause issues, because people don't tend to speak up because they always feel, okay, am I going to be judged if I sort of speak up here? And that's where you communicating and making them comfortable makes a big difference. And that's been my experience, which I think, yeah, is just something that I wanted to share. Yeah.
And that's a brilliant sequitur into our next topic, actually, Vivek. So if we could move on to look at how you can lead diverse teams. So you talked about recognizing cultural differences and being sensitive to those. Can you talk a little bit more, Vivek, about your experience of working within and managing diverse teams? How do you get the best out of a group of people that aren't in the same culture?
I think for me, it starts off kind of, I think I would use the word communication back again, I mean, like with every project, every task that you do, every member within the team needs to be absolutely clear about what their role is within that particular team, within that particular project. So for me, it's always about sort of making sure that every member within the team is completely aware of the overall objectives of what we're trying to achieve, by when we're trying to achieve, and what their role is as well. Because what they do in a way affects others within the team. So it's important that everybody has clarity on what they are expected to actually perform. And as you go do certain activities, obviously you work to milestones as well. So it starts off with that. And I think it's making sure that you are there to not only sort of support them in the activities that you do, but also kind of thinking ahead in terms of, okay, where are some of the challenges that are likely to come up, and what is the support that they need as well to actually help deliver some of the targets that they might have as individuals. So I think figuring that out, having those conversations, and having that open style of sort of working is equally important, because the most important thing here is building that trust within the team. Because when you're delivering a project, it's like a puzzle, and you're bringing different parts of the puzzle together. But it's important that everybody understands what their role is within that sort of puzzle and how things come together. So I think it starts off from there. Yeah.
Thanks. So the principles of good team working apply, but like super apply when you've got those cultural differences. So role clarity and good communication would apply in any team, wouldn't they? But when you've got those cultural differences, they're even more important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lucy, I would add to everything Vivek's saying. I think, you know, when you are leading diverse team in different cultures, actually what helped me, because I did the MBA fairly early in my career, I actually got an opportunity to meet people from lots of different cultures on the MBA. And prior to that, I hadn't actually done a global role. And so it helped me understand the nuances that go with certain cultures, right? So for example, if you have a team and you've got a lot of people from, say, you know, I'm generalizing here, so please apologize up front. But, you know, say you've got Americans on the team and you've also got people from, say, China, right? You know that when you're having a discussion with various people, there are some people that are going to be much more outspoken, much more open to challenge, much more confident in speaking their mind, whereas others, because of, you know, they don't want to challenge from a hierarchical system, or they don't want to fully say what they're thinking because it's not always encouraged within the culture, that you have to also be aware of those cultural nuances, which is something I actually learned on the MBA with the different students and how people approach things. So I would, when I had team members from certain parts of Asia who were very quiet in the room, would make sure they had a voice and make sure that they were given the time to speak without interruption, as you said earlier, where they could express what they were thinking, and bringing them into that conversation was absolutely critical so that everybody's voice got heard. The other thing I would add quickly on leading diverse teams is, you know, is really understanding the individuals that you have on the team. Because yes, sometimes you can be so task focused that we haven't taken the time to get to know each individual from a personal level. Like I would like to know, you know, their background, about their family, what's their motivation, what's their big driver, what does success look like for them, where do they want to go from their career? I want to know that right from the start, so that I am bearing that in mind every time I'm utilizing their strengths and building that deep relationship. Because as Vivek said, sometimes you're never going to meet that individual, but I want to create a level of psychological safety in that room or in that team where somebody can pick up and talk to me about anything and challenge anything. And, you know, even individuals, you know, like a team member who was sitting in Canada, it was great to be, not necessarily great to be, but because she was about to talk to me about the fact that she was having major personal issues at home with her husband, etc. I'd never met her in her life. And I was the second person she was talking to about the situation. But that only comes when you've built a level of trust and depth of relationship in leading the diverse team and knowing who each of those individuals are. And lastly, making sure the others understand each other as well, especially if it's a regular team of direct reports that are meeting on a regular basis. I love doing a team activity, which I class as the lifeline exercise, which some of you will have done, where team members all share the events in their lives that have shaped them to be who they are today. And when people hear each person talking about that, you can only do that once you've built a level of psychological safety. And when they do that, people suddenly have this great understanding of the individual who's sitting on a screen or sitting somewhere else in the room. And the relationships that get built are just something completely different after that, you know? So I'm just giving an exercise, a tip. But anyway, so a lot can be done when you're leading diverse teams. It's all about creating that trust, the relationship, the psychological safety.
I think that,
when I hear, sorry, Lucy, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say briefly, that reminds me of the situational leadership model, where you have to strike the right balance between the task and the relationship. And it's very easy virtually, isn't it, just to focus on the task and forget the relationships. But conflict, and we're all humans still, even if we're online with the same you know, personal issues outside of work. So Camille, sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to touch on the point that Sameena made about everyone having a voice, because I think it's a really interesting one. Because when I hear diverse teams, yes, there's the cultural element to consider, but when I'm building what I define as a diverse team, I'm thinking more about the strengths and the weaknesses of the individual members of that team. So my biggest bit of advice for anyone building teams would be to always hire people that know more about something than you do, because you come up with this kind of supernova of a team who are filling in all of your weak spots, all of your gaps, and each bringing something new and different, whether that is from a cultural perspective or whether that is from a professional or a skills perspective as well. So for me, a diverse team is made up of a group of people with very different personalities, very varying skill sets. If you sit in a room with your peers who all think the same as you, who can do the same things as you, and who talk the same way you do, you're never going to get anything done that's brilliant, because you're just going to end up with the same thing sort of pushed out time and time again. So that'd be my biggest advice. I'm part of an initiative by Google called I Am Remarkable, which is the practice of getting together groups of people from diverse groups, those who might not have a kind of a really strong voice in the room, whether that's gender-based, whether that's cultural-based, whatever that might be, and empowering those individuals to really start to recognize what their strengths are. Because the first step in building these teams is making sure that those individuals know what they're good at and know where their strengths lie, but also be confident enough within that group of people to express them. And it goes back to that psychological safety point that Sameena mentioned as well. So yes, diverse teams, I think, diverse from a cultural perspective, great, but diverse from a skills and a strengths point of view, even better, would be my advice.
Thank you. We see a lot of that on the MBA as well, because individuals recognize their own strengths and get put in a group to do a task and think, well, what are we going to do about this gap that we have? And suddenly realize that on the team with them is an expert in that area. And together they can really outperform the best in the field because of the diversity of skills that are in that team. Thanks, Camille. David and Carol, do you have anything to add on that?
I think everything, as I said, was it's really important. I work with in a very masculine environment, so as a leader, I try to give voice to other women to talk about what they want to change in their career, how they're going to build their career, and to respect that way of seeing things. And this respect and the voice you gave, it's really important for to have more innovation to the team, because diversity is innovation. You have to work with different genders and different perspectives and different ages. When you have different ages working together, it's really a great opportunity as well to find different ways to work with things. And I think diversity, it's in all kinds of work environments are great, not just the cultural one, but the diversity of backgrounds and how people think about things. And you're just gonna have this if you actually know people.
That's a good point, that because diversity, sometimes we just a bit two-dimensional about diversity, isn't it? But there's diversity in all sorts of different ways, and to recognize the ally role. So to look around the team and to look at who's contributing, and to recognize when particular individuals aren't, and helping them feel safe and supporting them in making contributions. And sometimes people make contributions, but they're quite quiet and they may be not heard the first time, so you can amplify the voices of other people as well, which is also a really effective strategy. David, do you have any points to add?
Yeah, well, I agree with everything that's been said, but I think this one is I put this into the category of always learning, because culturally, then the diversity of the world in which we live in is just constantly changing. And it does remind me of a couple of marketing campaigns that I've attempted in the past, where people or cultural interpretations of something that you have created that you think, yeah, this is fantastic. We love this. One was a winter campaign for an outdoor brand that we'd pulled together. We'd done all the imagery and everything, and there was this. The main shot was people trekking and climbing through the mountains in the wintertime amongst the forests and everything. We go, it's this great shot. We've got aerial shots of it and everything. And I won't name the country, but basically they all looked at me and went, this is a disaster. This whole campaign's a disaster. And you go, but why? You go, all the trees are dead. And you go, and it was like, it was just the wrong image just to put across. And yet the perception that I had sat at this going, we've got great angles, we've got aerial views, we've got great product being shot. They said, no, this is the whole environment. All the trees are dead. Why would you shoot something when everything is dead in the outdoors? And go, I didn't even think about it. It was a winter campaign. It's like, well, all the leaves have fallen off the tree, haven't they? Well,
they look like that all year round.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
goodness.
you suddenly go, seasonally, I've got this completely wrong and applying it. And then the other one was a country had taken, was very keen to take an old campaign that we had run here in the UK and lift it and launch this campaign in their particular country. And they'd taken the copy and everything from it. And they'd missed actually quite a key word out of a sentence in the campaign, in the call to action piece. So I said, oh, you've just missed a key word. And so, as sometimes you do on a piece of paper, you write the word and then you put an arrow where to insert the word into the sentence. That's the word you've missed, just put that in there. I came back into that country 6 months later, and there on the billboards was my arrow with the word, and they'd literally taken it from all of it. So I suppose when I look at those two campaigns again, there are moments when it's about how people perceive and understand what you think is right. Just goes to show that there are big differences, whether that's driven by seasonality or climate or what have you, let alone everything else that goes on in the world. But also people can take you very literally as well. So, and we are terrible from a British standpoint to be able to say things which actually we're never literal here in the UK. We're just not. If someone says, how are you? And someone goes, yeah, I'm okay. It means they're probably having a really bad day here in the UK. Well, most other people go, yeah, they're having a good day. He's okay. He's having a good day. So it's all about that interpretation that only comes from being able to have a deeper understanding and an awareness, but always learning, because whatever you are, where we are now to where we were even just 5 years ago, the world has changed. So you just have to be connected and understand all the time. But anyway, I thought I'd throw those two examples in.
Thank you.
Just to show that, trying to do a one size fits all or trying to, create something is often reinterpreted in very different ways to what you think. So
thank you. That I just came from a meeting where we were talking about the unconscious differences, so the assumed ways of working that we all have. This is how we do business and we're not even aware of it, and it takes somebody from a different working culture to see the differences. So sometimes it's just really interesting to ask people, what have you noticed about the way we do stuff around here, and to have them open your own eyes to your own working practices. Thank you. So we'll move on to the final section, and if the audience can start thinking about some questions, you can either put them in the chat, or if you're brave enough, you can put your hand up and I'll come to you. But the last question to the panel today is about influence. So putting together all of those interpersonal skills that we've talked about, and how you manage diverse teams, and perhaps look at conflict, how would you what have you learned about managing up or influencing leaders in your organization that perhaps are on a higher level than you?
I don't mind picking up on that. Sorry, Camille, is that yeah? Or you can go ahead.
No, you go for it, Sameena.
So basically, you know, firstly, in relation to managing up. So firstly, talking about your boss, and I spend a lot of time, even with pretty senior people, having difficulties with their CEOs, etc., and they're struggling to manage up, right? And I think it's so key to really have, going back to the relationships piece, about having that relationship. It actually, you know, if you're trying to, if you will always have in our careers people that we're working for that we don't particularly like or don't particularly respect, but it's all about, okay, putting that to one side and trying to build some commonalities and the depth of relationship, because unless you understand what their expectations are, and unless you also continually ask for things, especially if there's conflict and disconnect, to really figure out where you're not meeting that expectations and proactively do something to do that, because otherwise that can actually derail your career. And I've seen many senior leaders' careers derailed because they did not get on with their CEO or some critical person. So, you know, again, I go back to the building of relationships. And similarly, you know, it's very difficult to influence other key stakeholders unless you have, you know, got to know them and got to understand what their needs are and what their expectations are. So one of the things I always do as part of the coaching is help the individuals really understand who the key stakeholders are and what it is that they need to do to have a relationship that's not a 0 out of 10, but closer to 10 out of 10 on those relationships. Because they find that when you have a great relationship with these key people, you're much more likely to influence them. There's going to be far less conflict, and you're going to be able to get things through that you wouldn't have otherwise. But there's a total skill attached to that, and a lot of work that does need to be done, which people don't invest time and effort in, and they're so focused in their tunnel vision, their total functional area, that they haven't done some things that are really fundamental to drive change and transformation in their organization. So that's really what I would say, you know, and just taking the time to do that and building those professional networks that are going to help you get some of your key decisions through.
Thanks, Sameena. Camille?
Yeah, and to do that from kind of not just a managing up perspective, but also being managed up as well, I think is a really interesting concept. So there's a practice that exists called reverse mentoring, which hopefully this is a practical takeaway that you can go ahead and try within whatever you're doing yourself at the moment, which involves a kind of a mentor-mentee relationship, but flipped. So I did one recently where I was the mentee, I was the senior person, but I was the mentee, and my mentor was selected for me by the organization that I was working with as being sort of an expert on a topic that I might not know a lot about, so that I can better myself as a leader and influence wider groups of people, be better at understanding how people operate within the workplace environment. That topic, it was actually a really unusual one. A lot of people got very sort of business related practices. I was given the topic of neurodiversity. And the person that was mentoring me in this instance was somebody that worked within my organisation who I'd never met before, who was neurodiverse. And we spent, I think it was over the course of maybe 9 months, a session a month, 1 to 2 sessions a month, of them challenging me on my existing perceptions, beliefs, and unconscious bias around the subject matter, and enabling me to learn more about how to work with people who are neurodiverse, how to understand sort of the what it means to be neurodiverse in a workplace environment. And that meant that when I finished speaking to that person, we're still great friends now today. I'm really glad that I met them, and you know, continue to sort of have a chat with them every now and then. But it meant that I was then able to better influence the people that I was working with and recognize different ways of working with different people who might not have the same way of communicating, have the same way of sort of expressing themselves, and becoming generally a better leader and influencing from a backwards perspective. Through this kind of reverse mentoring scheme. And I would highly recommend you giving it a go if you work for or are involved in, or however you can within your peer groups even, sort of challenge others on topics that you're less familiar with, and to tackle that sort of element of unconscious bias in order to be a better level of influence in the future. I nearly said influencer, which is a very different thing. So yeah, but yes, that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Camille. And Vivek?
Thanks, Lucy. No, I completely agree with everything that Sameena and Camille have just said. A couple of just points to add, practical examples of what I think has benefited me, especially when managing upwards, is, I personally believe that leaders are, one of the main things for leaders to do is take decisions. That's what they're paid for, is to take really strong, important decisions. And how you can actually help them make those decisions actually plays a big role in how you manage upwards, as well as how do you make that decision-making process easy for them by giving them the information they need or highlighting issues at the right time is one practical sort of tip that's worked really well for me. And the second thing is about being predictable in delivery. And by that I mean is when your manager or your boss exactly knows what they're going to get from you, and that's through the work you do, your behaviors, the performances that you have, and it just sets the expectations in terms of, okay, they know, okay, if it's Vivek, this is what I'm going to get from Vivek. And you be predictable in delivery is the second sort of tip that I wanted to share. But that is in a way linked to what Sameena said, is it, because being predictable in delivery comes with building trust, comes with building relationships, and that's an integral part of it. So they're not sort of completely isolated from each other. So those are the two practical things that I just wanted to add on to what Sameena and Camille have already mentioned.
Thanks, Vivek. David and Carol?
Yeah, one word comes to mind on this is the word help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but also don't be afraid to offer help either. And I think it helps a lot, especially in the managing up situation. I think when you're early on in your career, you want to show that you've got this. I've got this. You don't need to worry. I know what I'm doing. And also you're full of confidence and you want to prove that, you can deliver this piece of it. That can create what I call an island situation if you're not careful. And people go, well, he's got it, right? He thinks he's got it. Well, let's see whether he can deliver. And so you start putting yourself in a slightly dangerous position. And a bit about what Vivek says, leaders are there to lead and they're there to make a decision, but they're there to support and help the team because they're there because they've got experience. So always ask for help when you need help. Don't think that you can do this all by yourself, because the very good chances that no one can do it all by themselves. So always ask for help. And then sometimes managing up, people can get frustrated because they go, I don't know whether they don't seem to be giving me stuff, or I want to be doing more, but no one seems to be giving me more. Well, again, there is nothing better as a leader than someone in your team coming to you and saying, I've got a bit of upside. I'd love to get involved in another project or what have you. You go, yes, please. This is brilliant. So both instances, or ask for help, but also offer help when you've got that capacity, because both are immensely positive statements in a work environment. Yet when you think about it, you're offering, I need help. It sounds like you're being vulnerable. Actually, I think it's the other way around. It just shows you that you are, you recognize the value of your boss or your manager or your leader or the organization to enhance what you're doing, but also it gives you the chance to show I can give more as well. So just that word help, I think is one that you should try and use as much as you possibly can. Don't be afraid to use it.
Thank you. It makes me think about vulnerability having actually a complete flip side, doesn't it, really? Because what Sameena and many of the panel members today have highlighted is the importance of the human side of relationship and sharing bits about ourselves that perhaps we think might make us appear a bit vulnerable, a bit weak, but in fact it has the opposite effect in terms of strengthening relationships. And similarly, asking for help might make you feel like you're demonstrating vulnerability, but in fact you might be demonstrating, the security and confidence in that. So I think that's a really interesting take on it. Thank you, David. And Carol, have you got anything to add?
No, I think it's very dangerous to hide your weaknesses. So self-awareness, it's how to show everybody your weakness, and that's how you build complementary the team who have people who complement each other. So it's very important to be in a safe place when you talk with others about how you have to improve yourself as well. So you bring this kind of empathy for the others, and you have like a more resilient work environment, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, we've got a few minutes left now for questions. So please, if you have a question, just post it in the chat and we'll see how many we can get through. Huda's added to the conversation and said that they've been working on how to improve being happy at work and being mentally healthy, because if you're happy at work, then you will be a better leader. And I think that's a really interesting point to make. So I was speaking to some occupational therapists actually the other day about how to integrate more of that into the program, and recognizing that we're physiological beings as well as academic beings on the MBA, and how important it is to recognize all aspects of ourselves in relation to work. Because if absolutely, Huda, if you don't look after yourself, then you can't look after anybody else at work or at home. And then we have a question from Ngok. So as top leaders in your industry, how do you manage superior complex within the team to ensure everybody's skills are? So is that about power relationships, Ngok, do you think? Would you be happy to expand on that? Have I understood your question correctly? Go ahead. I see you took your microphone off. Go on. Maybe not. So, well, for the panel then, it's sometimes easier said than done, isn't it? Speaking truth to power in a senior role. What would your advice be if you're a bit intimidated by somebody in your team, or they've got a bit of a they're on a bit of a power trip? How do you negotiate that relationship?
Lucy, I'm just going to say something, because there's two questions, one below that as well, that's kind of linked, because it's all about creating, dealing with conflict, as well as how do you maintain trust within your teams. As you say, the power relationship piece. And I know we've got very limited time, so I'm going to throw in, I'm just going to recommend 2 books, right? And I know you might not necessarily want them, but here we are. Certainly a great book for handling difficult conversations or conflict that somebody's asking about. It's an old book, but it's definitely got some great insights in there. Crucial Conversations, been around for a long time, but really good in terms of how to handle difficult conversations, whether it's in the workplace, obviously focusing largely in the workplace, but it also talks about from a personal standpoint, some great learnings there. And the other one, much more recent book, which is by Heath, and it's Never Lead Alone. I think I recommended it to you, Lucy, you and your team before in the MBA group, which is all about how do you create that psychological safety in teams where people feel very comfortable to not only constructively challenge, but where they can all have difficult conversations and still keep that internal psychological safety in the team. I could talk a lot more about it, but I'm just conscious that we've got very limited time to get into quite a deep subject, almost a subject that you could talk about by itself, but some lot of great techniques and tools out there if anyone's interested. Okay.
Thank you. I've just put links to those books in the chat if anybody wants to follow them up.
That's great. Quick. Perfect.
And any more questions from anybody? We've got 2 minutes left. Okay, well, if you do have any more questions, then Mariam and I, well, actually, can I ask the panel member to stay on the call, and then I'll get a photograph? Would you mind? So if any of the participants would like to ask questions, if they could contact Mariam, you should have her details, MBAadmin at Newcastle, no, MBA, sorry, that's a different person. MBA at newcastle.ac.uk will get you through to Mariam. And do keep in touch and look on our website for more about the programme. If you've got any questions, and if you've already got an offer between now and September, then be more than happy to clarify any issues. If you're still thinking, we're equally very happy to have informal chats before you decide to apply. Other than that, thank you all very much for your attention this afternoon. It's been really fascinating discussion. Thank you very, very much to our panel members, Camille, Vivek, Carol, David, and Sameena. It's been fascinating. I'm really looking forward to chewing over the transcription and boiling it down into a nice blog post.
Hope to see many of you on the program. Really looking forward to meeting with you guys, especially because I'm actually based out of Newcastle. So, you know, we try to come in even personally if we can and do those sessions. So look forward to that.
Thank you. So we'll end it here. I'll say goodbye to everybody. And if the panel members could stay on the call, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.